Hi, and welcome.
I'm Z.
And I'm Keith.
And we're going to tell you about the movie that we just watched. But first, a little bit of a heads up.
Some of the movies we watch deal with heavy subject matters.
In order to talk about these emotionally delicate things and the heavy subject matters that we sometimes cover, we add humor and crude language to add some levity and to process our own trauma.
If that doesn't feel fun or safe for you, we completely understand. Please take care of yourself first and foremost.
And we spoil the end of pretty much every movie that we watch.
Now you know. On with the show. Someone bet on the bobtail nag. Someone bet on the bay.
Girl, are you on drugs?
Yes. Yes, I'm on drugs, yes. Hey, and welcome to
Hi.
our show.
Hi.
Hi. Namaki. Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Get on that Patreon.
Yeah. Patreon, Instagram. Don't look at TikTok because I haven't touched it in so long, but I want to make videos soon.
We're also on Twitter, but
Twitter.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, like, Twitter's fine. Twitter's the same thing as Twitter. I've been trying to, like, very unsuccessfully trying to add a little more tweets than just the updates we do for what we're showing for the week or whatever. But yeah, Instagram is, you know, if
where
you
it's
have
at.
Instagram, yeah. YouTube as well
Oh yeah.
will be. I want us to do more things on YouTube. My camera broke. I'm so bummed about that. My camera broke, and that's why we're not doing vlogs or the video of our vodcast or whatever. Whatever. Yeah.
My Own Private Idaho.
Yeah, that's what we watched. I don't think I'd seen the whole thing. I think I'd just seen little bits of it. I think that I flipped to it because it was a movie and it was like starring Keanu Reeves, and I was like, we're watching that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember the Italy part.
Wild.
And that's all I remember out of it. I might have seen a little bit before that, but I definitely, once they got to Italy or whatever, Rome or whatever, I was like, oh, I remember this.
You know that Rome is in Italy, right? No.
I'm just kidding.
It is.
But it's like, specifically, they were
I
like
know.
Roma
Yeah.
or whatever.
But then they go to the countryside.
Yeah, but that's where she was at. It was supposed to be Rome, right? Because her address was like Roma or whatever.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, that's why I was like Rome or whatever, because I wasn't quite sure.
I didn't remember most of it.
I
also didn't remember any of the Shakespearean shit.
Shakespearean shit.
Like all the stuff with Bob.
Oh, yeah. I know. I didn't remember Bob as a character, but I know that I'm pretty sure that I'd seen the part where they go in and Keanu Reeves has his like back to the guy. I think I'd seen to Bob when he's like keeps just turning to Bob and being like, I'm turning my back on you and you were like a father.
Oh, in the restaurant.
Yeah.
At the end. Okay.
Yeah. But I thought it was more tragic than it actually was. I for some reason I thought that River Phoenix died at the end, and I'm like, man, this is gonna suck because River Phoenix is gonna be dead at the end, and it's gonna be like this horror. But no, that's spoiler. River Phoenix doesn't die at the end of this movie. I mean, he's dead in real life, but not in this movie. So I was
silver lining.
Yeah, no, but I was like, oh, thank God. I didn't want to. I was like, I really don't want to. I was kind of dreading it because I was like, oh God, I don't want to do tragic gay.
Right.
Not like this, you know.
Right.
And then that's not
I
not
mean,
what
it's not the
happened.
best.
It was really interesting to me because I didn't remember that Keanu Reeves character. So like the plot of the movie is basically that it's following like street hustlers and like sex workers who are guys. Which I think is interesting because I think that's an aspect of sex work that a lot of times people ignore.
Absolutely.
Like when people talk about sex workers, they always act like men don't do that.
Correct.
Or like it's only women, you know, and only women do survival sex work and shit like that. And clearly that's not the case. So I think the fact that like the majority of sex workers that are portrayed in this movie are men, I think I don't feel like that's ever really been done again to this extent. It has been done, but like not as well known, not with the caliber of actor / director, and with the attitude being not
right.
anti sex work, because it's just showing what their life looks like more than it is giving you a critique of who's right and who's wrong. But what's interesting is that River Phoenix, you know, he's the like character you're introduced to first, and he's like the one you're left with last. And then Keanu Reeves in River Phoenix plays obviously a sex worker, but he does like survival sex work. And Keanu Reeves comes into the picture, and he also does sex work, but you're immediately basically told that it's by choice. Like he literally doesn't have to do this. And I think this is something that maybe other sex workers will disagree, but I think when you put yourself into a situation that you can get out of with a phone call, it's not survival sex work because you're doing it by choice. And it doesn't matter if you put yourself in danger, you're still choosing to put yourself in danger when you don't have to. And that's not the same as survival sex work in the sense that survival sex work means that to survive, you have to do sex work. Or like that's
For instance, if you're living in a friend's basement and during lockdown and choose.
Right. Like, you know, if you have, you know, like people will describe doing survival sex work as like they did sex work so they would have a place to stay at night, in the sense that they would sleep with someone so that they could sleep. They literally could
be there overnight.
Yeah, so they could have a place to literally sleep at night. And like sex for a place to sleep kind of thing. So like that's what survival sex work is. And survival sex work is not someone being like, I come from money and status, I'm able to choose that way of living whenever I want, but I prefer to live this way.
Right.
That's not survival. That's a choice. Right. And like people,
and it makes a clear distinction.
And it does. Well, that was the thing. No, I mean, not at first, but
yeah. And I mean, the distinction made is really just based around Keanu's character.
Well, the distinction made, I think it's really, because I was thinking about this this morning. I was like, what's interesting is they literally give you like sort of like, because there's at one point they have a discussion of like when River Phoenix is like, if I had a different life, I wouldn't have been this way. And I think Keanu Reeves is kind of like, is that really true? You know, but you're shown, yes, like literally that's the whole point, is that like they're literally born into different classes, like, and they're born from different circumstances. Like Keanu Reeves is literally an heir, can do whatever he wants. The police know who he is. They don't arrest him. He controls basically, he has an aspect of control over his life that no one else doing this does. And he's able to be safer in the situation than other people because of his connections.
Right.
Meanwhile, River Phoenix, you're literally told that his brother is his dad. So it's like he's literally born of opposite circumstance as Keanu Reeves. Like he's born out of like tragedy and incest and poverty and and shame. And then Keanu Reeves is like, I can go back home whenever I want and I will get an inheritance and I will have money and I will and he's always very, I mean, I think to his character's credit, he's always very upfront about that. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to stay like this. This is and he says, and this is another interesting part about his character. He says that he's doing this specifically so his family will be more impressed with him, because if he was just good,
Right.
they wouldn't see it as a character, like they wouldn't see it as a
Development. Or
yeah, his, like
redemption.
not redemption, but they wouldn't see him as having good character. They would just see him as being
Right.
like essentially like just handed everything. So if he does this and then magically he's a good boy, they'll see him as coming back home, and like they'll respect him more for making those decisions. And like,
When I turn 21, I don't want any more of this life. My mother and father will be surprised at the incredible change. It will impress them more when such a fuck-up like me turns good than if I had been a good son all along. All my bad behavior I will throw away to pay a debt. I will change when everybody expects it the least.
there's so much about this movie that's like really, really telling you that like there is a difference. And like at the end, Keanu Reeves like just goes home and he turns his back on all these people that he's like, I'll never turn my back on you. Like, you'll have a place when I'm in power. And then he's like, nah, that's not going to happen because I don't want to, basically. And meanwhile, River Phoenix is still like, it starts with him like falling asleep on the road home, or like from home or whatever. And it ends with him falling asleep on the road home. And it's like, it's showing you that like, there's not really an escape, but there's
Right.
not, but there's also like, you know, the house, I read the trivia that Gus Van Sant like wrote the house, or like the barn crashing.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
it was
yeah.
like a vision that he, or like the way that he saw like the idea of like never being able to go back home again. And I think the emphasis,
Apparently it's something he would paint often.
right. And I think it's like the River Phoenix being on the road is like that like sort of what do you call it? Sort of like the crossroad of like, you can't go back home, but you also can't escape who you are.
Right.
So you're always stuck in this like place of like, you know, where you come from is where you come from, and like that's not something that you can change. But it also doesn't mean that everything stays the same. So it's like a very like it's a really interesting movie.
That's it.
That's it. Bye.
Cracked it.
Fucking Udo Kier though. God.
You want to be my friend?
Yep.
My name is Hans. I'm from Germany. And now I live in America, selling pieces for cars.
He's so
I was
good.
so excited to know that he was going to be in it.
I had no idea. I wouldn't have known who he was when I watched it. First time.
Right. I only knew he was going to be in it like a couple minutes before, because I was trying to look up who played, or I was trying to look up just like a different character. I don't remember which character it was. And I just saw Udo Kier and I was like, oh shit. And then like the next scene he was there and I was like, fuck yeah. So fucking weird.
Love him. R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Yeah, and he did.
No, he came out with a movie like a year or two ago. Fucking, I hope not.
I thought.
God, if so, I'm going to be just devastated. He's 78. It doesn't say he's dead.
Okay. My bad.
Fucking Christ. Keith over here trying to kill me, telling me baby Kier is dead. just to keep y'all in the loop.
Oh my God.
What?
He was born during the end of World War II. Mm-hmm. In Germany.
That episode of Doctor Who is about him.
Yeah, pretty much. Mommy?
Are you my mummy?
The hospital was bombed and buried his mother in the rubble. Him and his mother, newborn Udo. Yeah, that's the whole story, I guess. They both survived.
Well, okay, good. Oh my God, the scene where he's like, "This is my mother," and where he's showing them
yeah,
the
the
picture,
photo.
and Keanu Reeves is like, "She's very beautiful," and fucking River Phoenix is like, "You look just like her," and then they show the picture.
My mother, heaven bless her soul, she died 7 years ago.
She's very beautiful.
I think so. You want to see it?
She looks just like you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God, Udo Kier has to know that he's so funny. He has to be aware.
I'm sure.
Did you say not true?
I said I'm sure.
Oh, okay. Like, he's so... Oh, my God. Thank you. Oh, my God. It was so... Oh, God. So fucking funny.
I feel like the early 90s, too, was a particular moment for... I don't know. Like, I remember... It just reminds me of Sprockets, which was a Mike Myers recurring sketch
yeah,
on
yeah.
SNL.
I'm, like, unfamiliar with that skit other than seeing it, like, in clips. Like, obviously I didn't see it at the time because I was
I mean,
too
the whole thing
young.
was... It's just absurdist.
Right.
But played very seriously, like
Yeah.
his character.
Then it is springtime, and like the blood and gorge gazelles at the Garmisch Partenkirchen Zoo, I'm ready to rot.
Just to keep everybody in the loop, I am wearing a TENS unit while we're recording. Just so everybody knows.
What is that?
I don't know. It's some electrical
Word.
I don't know.
Transcutaneous? I think is-
Transcutaneous electrical nerve
yeah.
stimulator or something like that. It basically just sends electrical thing impulses or something, pulses electric and down your...
It's like licking a 9-volt, but
Yeah, it's like...
it's just on any place that you put.
I will say, when you put it on your fingers, that's when it feels like licking a 9-volt. You're like, ugh! On the body, it really just feels like somebody's tickling you really fast with a little more pressure than what feels ticklish. I have to be careful what part of my body I put it on, though, because it's very ticklish. Like, if I put it on anything that's, like, meaty, like a meatier part of my body, oh, my God, it's kickle. It's all kickle all the time. Right now I have it concentrated on my lower back. It's supposed to be, I don't know, I've had, like, a couple of one shitty doctor and one good doctor recommend it to me. So I was like, well, you know, that's like 1.5 good recommendations. So...
It's like a 3.5-star rating.
It's very weird, and
2.5.
yeah, something like that. 2.5? No. What? But yeah, it's a 1991 movie, which is also interesting. There's not really any. I mean, there's butts, but there's not any like. Maybe there's titty. There's nothing like... I really enjoyed the sex scenes, too. However you want to call them.
Yeah. Me too. I love that.
Yeah. The stylistic choices of them. Because I think...
like tableau.
Yeah. And I think it's like... I think what's interesting about that is you can imagine it feeling way less scary or like vulnerable for the actors to just be in a still pose, you know, and that's it. You know, not having to hold an expression or not hold an expression, but like not having to fake an expression or like move around or do anything like that. So I imagine it probably is way less intimidating to film it like that. But also it was very I don't,
For whatever reason, I thought of. There's a scene in A Clockwork Orange.
oh, right, the threesome
Yeah.
that gets
And
sped
it's
up really
sped up,
fast.
yeah. And how much more I like this.
Yeah. Clockwork Orange, a film I saw with my mother for the first time.
Oh, good Lord.
Yep.
I'm so sorry.
I was like, this isn't. Ugh. And that threesome scene sure was not fun to watch with your mom.
Fuck Kubrick, man.
I know.
So over it.
I do enjoy The Shining, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy what.
Don't read anything about
Right,
how it was
exactly. I
made.
like the movie, but knowing how Shelley Duvall was basically like just verbally abused the entire time.
Yeah.
And was like sick and like miserable the whole time because of it. Shelley Duvall.
She's back, baby.
I know. Love that.
I forget what she did already. It was like a year ago.
No, I think it's like, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think she was just in like a horror movie or something like that, but I don't know if it's already come out yet. I think I heard about that she was like, it was filming last year or something like that. I don't know if it
Maybe.
actually came out. Maybe I'm wrong. I think
I don't honestly know what to say about this film.
I know that's the thing. This is the problem when we enjoy a film,
Kind of.
but it's not like there's not much to critique about it
Yeah.
because it's not like because I think this is a movie where like then versus now, like the reality of the situations hasn't changed that much. There's still class disparity. There's still, people who, like there's still a need for like the secrecy of, sex workers that men get because they don't want to be out or whatever. They can't accept. There's all these things are like, it's still sort of like relevant today.
Yeah.
So it's almost like more what's the word, like more yeah, or something more like not avant-garde. I'm thinking like because like now it would be like they would do this movie and it would just be like dicks and there would be like it'd just be like the way to push the envelope would be like to show a ball sack.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the thing is like it's not really sensationalized.
Right. But like if it's almost more evocative, I guess, than if it was made now, because now it would just be so there would be so much more attempt to make it
Right.
like shocking. And a lot of times that it comes off boring to me.
Yeah.
Like this reads as people who are comfortable with it. Because like Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix were like best friends and they lived together in Gus Van Sant's house during the making of the movie and like with someone else, I can't remember who it was.
Most of the cast is
Yeah. Oh yeah. And like they all
Gus Van Sant had to move out.
Yeah, he had to move out so he could get some sleep. That's amazing. But like that reads in the movie. You know, it reads as something where like everyone knows each other and everyone's comfortable
Also,
with
this
each
comes
other.
up. This has come up before, like especially the small budget films.
Yeah.
It's basically a necessity, but it
At least
brings so much more.
Yeah.
It really pays off.
Yeah.
As far as like
Correct.
people working together, you
Yeah.
can really see it. And
Yeah,
feel
and it reads like even if there's like even if there's like internal conflict that you're not aware of, there's still a closeness to that.
Right.
That comes through in that like if you just don't like someone that you're filming with and you never interact with them because you don't have to and you just ignore them and then when you're on screen, it's probably going to come out flat. And I mean, maybe it won't, but like there's going to be more of a chance that it comes off flat because you don't care about this person, you don't like them. But if you're like, I don't like, I'm always getting in fights with this person because we're always in each other's space and we're always like, there's no escape because it's a small budget and we have to sort of like interact and we have no other choice because we have to live together during this. It's going to come off on screen as a relationship, not like a romantic relationship, but like a friendship, or like you're going to see that bleed through into the performance. So like even like the idea that like not everyone gets along on set or not everybody's best friends, like a small budget film is still gonna, it's whatever it is still gonna add to the performance no matter what it is.
Right.
And that just doesn't come through with and I feel like even now like it doesn't really come through because like, it'll be like, this movie is an indie movie and it only had $15 million. And like, every person in it is a person that's like famous already. And they stayed in a hotel and they paid for everyone's private suites or whatever. And you're like, okay, great. Wow. It's really independent, and it's just like, I mean, that's cool. That's great. But like, it doesn't do anything, you're just like, that's not whatever, it's not really doing anything for the movie,
Yeah. I mean, well, one thing, this was just interesting that this was an IMDb trivia, so not verified.
Yeah.
But it was released by New Line Cinema, and Gus Van Sant was very excited about that. He was like, cool, it's going to get a wide release. I want it to be fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
He was like, loved the idea that it would be shown in like malls.
Yeah.
But right before it released, New Line created a new like branch to highlight like small independent films.
Oh.
So it only got very few prints made.
Wow.
And a very limited distribution and
Showing,
screening. And he was like, I should have just done it independently.
Yeah. Yeah.
I may as well have.
Seriously. But yeah, like it's interesting though because like my favorite part is that Jim Caviezel's in this, like just for like one scene.
His first film, apparently.
I'm like, haha, you were in a fucking homo film, you goddamn piece of shit. Jesus Christ, look at you now. Because he's such a doofus. He's like, he was at some, I think he was like on some, what was that thing? It happened like a couple years back, I think.
Pandemic?
Yeah, no. It was like a bunch of people had a fucking conference or something. I feel like maybe we saw, what was the, because I feel like he was talking like it was like on a big screen, like at a convention or something for right wingers, but I don't know.
Like CPAC or something?
Yeah, maybe it might have been that, but it was like a couple years ago. It might have been that, and he's like they're stealing mercurochrome or whatever from babies. Adrenochrome, that's what it is. What's mercurochrome? Did I make that up?
That's a real thing.
Oh, okay. He's like, they're stealing it from...
I think adrenochrome is real, too, but no.
Right, but it's not, yeah. And it's like...
Yeah, he bought all the Pizzagate shit.
Yeah, he was just like, they're eating babies, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Hold on. Jim Caviezel...
What has he been in?
He was Jesus Christ. He was in the Passion of the Christ as right. Jesus Christ.
Well, there's your flag.
Yeah, right? The Sound of Freedom. What's this? Oh, okay. It's a movie.
If a child knows he's going to die, his body will secrete this adrenaline And they have a lot of terms that they use that he takes me through. But it's the worst horror I've ever seen, is Screaming Alone, even if I never, ever saw it. It's beyond, and these people that do it, there'll be no mercy for them. This is one of the best films I've ever done in my life.
Is that a real thing?
You don't remember Squirrel Nut Zippers?
Is that real?
It was a band.
No, I don't have any idea.
They were like the other band besides Brian Setzer's orchestra, whatever, that was part of the like swing revival of the late 90s, early aughts, whatever. Put a lid on it. It was their... I'm glad you missed it. It was embarrassing for all.
No idea. It's going to be okay.
I will say that I was hoping the trivia would
I know.
put some light on this, and it did. Shed some light.
Put some light.
Give some highlights to put some highlights in the hair of
Yeah.
the Shakespeare, what to me read as Shakespearean
Yeah.
language. And I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
It's also not consistent,
Yeah.
which is okay. I didn't find it jarring as much as like, what am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah.
Presumably, so yes, that was confirmed, but presumably it was like basically 3 different scripts Van Sant was working on that he kind of just like stalled out on, so he mashed them together.
Interesting.
And one of them was, like a contemporary setting of Henry IV.
Huh.
So that's all the shit with Bob.
Yeah.
And, I assume, I don't know the play, so I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
But I assume all the stuff with Keanu and his
Yeah.
dad.
Right. Well, that's something that I feel like the people who do that are mostly performing.
What do you mean?
Like in the movie, like Bob is always performing for people, and he's lying and he's telling. And Keanu Reeves' character, Scott
Scott Favor
Steve is
and Mike Waters.
is always sort of putting on a front, because he's, like when he's talking to his father, he's talking like that. And when he's talking with Bob, he talks like that.
Right.
And so it feels like, it doesn't really feel like
But
when
you also get the weird asides or monologues where they're just talking to no one or themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's still talking to Bob, and
Yeah, I guess
for the most part. And like, I thought that was really interesting because he's like talking very quietly, and they're so far away from each other. But I love shit like that. It's one of those things. It's something that not like I mentioned it in our unmentionable about Rememory, which I don't know if that's gone out yet. I don't remember.
This past Wednesday.
Okay. And like good or bad, there's movie-wise, good or bad, there's a scene where Peter Dinklage, who's a little person in, real life and obviously in the film as well, where he is driving
I'm so
someone.
sick of like regular sized roles going to little people.
He's regular size. He goes. He just like gets in someone else's car and he's like, I'm going to drive.
Oh, yeah,
and there's
yeah.
no mention of like, and I love that thing because it's like, I think that movies are the perfect place to have that sort of like
Suspension of disbelief.
yeah, it doesn't have to be real. You're watching a performance of something. It doesn't really matter who's playing it. It's like, it's why
I love the idea that someone is like, that ruined the whole movie for them. Because they could not suspend it.
but Peter Dinklage isn't tall enough to
really?
reach the pedals.
The sci-fi movie.
Right, exactly. This movie about perfectly extracting memories and replaying them
onto glass
and replaying them for people. is
You know there's someone out there.
Yeah.
You know there's a review somewhere or a Rotten Tomatoes
yeah.
comment.
Fucking like this thing like hit me a lot.
Do you remember? I don't remember if you were there for that. So our pal Chris used to host a trivia night locally, and that's how I knew who he was personally. Quizmaster Chris. The best trivia night I've ever
Yeah.
before and
always
since
fun.
ever
Yeah.
attended. But one night he did a category that was you had to guess the movie from the Rotten Tomatoes review.
Oh no, I don't think. No, I didn't.
And the only one I can remember is like it was Wolf of Wall Street, and it was like there were no wolves in this. 1 star or whatever.
Amazing. Yeah, like I don't know, like a long time ago, like I had that sort of like pretentious, like, oh, comedy movies are so absurd and they don't even make sense.
Yeah.
And like a friend who, in my opinion, this is going to come off as rude because it is, but like they weren't that smart, you know?
Yeah.
And they were like, and they said something very like sort of poignant. And they said, they were like, I hate when people talk about comedy movies like being, like not being realistic. And they're like, yeah, that's the point. And I was like, oh, fuck. Oh, shit. She's right. Fuck. I was like, that's, and after that it sort of like shifted my view. And I'm like, oh, like each movie has its own sort of like logic that's allowed.
Correct.
And it, you know, sort of like reshaped my idea of like, I'm like, oh, comedy movies are like do suspend reality sometimes because they're trying to be absurd. Like the joke is
Right.
that things aren't, you know, it's just to make people laugh. And that's the whole point of them. And if you're
Right.
going to a comedy movie, because she was like, why are you going to a comedy movie if you want like
Realistic
right?
scenarios.
She's like, that's the opposite of a comedy movie, and I was like,
Right.
fuck, she's right.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you're like, you're not smart enough to come up with something like that, you know?
Right.
I'm saying, you know, that mean thought that
It's a very, it feels to me very sophomore, like teenager,
yeah,
you know, and, you know, we can gender it and say white male kind of thing but to be like, no, that's not, you know,
that wouldn't really happen.
we all have that voice in our head, I feel like.
yeah.
And for some people don't only listen to that voice.
Yeah,
Apparently.
yeah,
Into adulthood.
right. Oh my God, I was reading this. This is like just because you said, you know, it's a teenage thing and people so I was looking up because you know, the reason redacted. I looked
Okay.
up because it's a long story that no one
Sure.
cares about. I looked up like because you know that people say, you know, your brain doesn't stop developing until you're
Around
25. But the rational part of your brain, the part that
Never
thinks-
develops.
No, that doesn't complete essentially developing until you're around 25. So it might be a little bit before, a little bit after, but like around the age of 25. And the interesting thing about that is what I read, it said teenagers don't essentially don't use that part of their brain because it's not fully developed. And so they don't
It's not possible.
right until they're like 25. And I was like, I love this idea because it says teenagers don't until they're 25. And I'm like, that's exactly how it feels.
yeah.
It does feel like until you're in your mid 20s, you're kind of still a teenager. Like that's how I view people sometimes. Is like, oh, you're 20, you're a kid, you know,
Yeah.
like, and you don't have, but it says that adults, like, you know, and teenagers, like, literally think differently. Like, they are
Yeah.
not able to think in the same ways, which I think is important. That's why you should consider what kids think and what kids, you know, because
Right.
you're not able to think like them. And just because they think differently doesn't mean that things aren't going to affect them
Yeah,
differently
don't be
as well.
ableist.
Welcome.
I mean,
Well, yeah. But yeah, that's just such
ageist, but also.
yeah.
you've got a different brain than me.
Exactly, right. I mean, but that's like, right. Anyway, it was just an interesting thing that like it's not like the whole brain. It's not like your brain finishes developing and it's not like your
there's
brain
no
yeah.
choosing 18 as the hallmark
Such a
for adulthood
fucking-
is purely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And you know this because things like age of consent
Yeah.
is different in different places,
Correct.
different cultures.
Yeah. Right.
So it's completely arbitrary
Yeah.
and decided before MRIs were invented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We barely have scratched the surface in understanding how a human brain works.
Right.
Now,
Right.
in the 24th century. So, fucking A.
29th.
69th.
Oh shit. 69th.
And we will always be limited by the fact that the only... What?
I just assumed that you were about to say something sarcastic, so I started laughing.
I wasn't.
Oh, okay, sorry.
The human condition is limited by the fact that we can only study humans with human brains through the lens of a human brain.
Right, yeah.
Right? So there's it's always going to be tricky.
Kiki.
Anyway, so that made me feel better about like why this movie has like so many different distinct flavors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think it's blended well.
I agree.
It's a little confusing.
I agree.
I think it's almost impressionistic, one might say.
Yeah.
Because there's not...
It definitely feels like an art piece in itself. It definitely feels like the movie itself is done as an artistic choice and not trying to be real. It's not done... It's done with realism, but not to
doesn't have a
achieve
3-act
realism.
structure.
Yeah, for sure.
Conventional sense.
Which I enjoy.
It's
I kind of
refreshing.
hate 3-act structures, or the idea that you need them in order to.
Well, and there's a great. I think I've linked to it before, but I highly recommend. I think she did two-part video on. Maggie Mayfish did a 2-part video about why Joseph Campbell was bullshit and why he's fucked up. Like he's the one that came up with the hero's journey or whatever, which is what the 3-act structure is based upon. And basically, he was just a rich nerdy kid who subscribed to like the great men of history kind of myth, and like super sexist. Go figure, or at least patriarchal. We'll say. Everybody's been sucking his dick for 60 years. 70 years.
60, okay. Yeah.
You know, like...
Yeah.
I mean, we really blame...
George Lucas.
Yeah. For taking that red pill.
Yeah.
And those two, like... docking and... that really did a number on... the film...
Yeah.
endeavor.
Yeah. Ugh.
So I highly recommend those videos. And in general, her channel is very good.
Yeah. Would you recommend?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you've never seen it.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, I would say, you know, don't go into it looking for standard structure.
Yeah.
It definitely has some of that. You know, there's enough.
Oh, yeah. It's
there's
not without
enough
structure. Yeah.
That
for
you're
sure.
not bored at all.
No, yeah.
Or I wasn't. And
Right.
I don't know. It's nice. And it feels very, you know, of course, this is subjective as fuck. Because it can't not be. But, you know, it feels... It's one of those things that feels very 90s.
Yeah.
In all the best ways.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. There's
As far as film
something.
goes.
There's something about it that's so like perfectly nostalgic.
Right.
Over things like the way that they're able to like hitch rides places and like how they're able to go. You know, like there's stuff like that. Like that someone might look at it now that didn't exist in the 90s and be like, okay, how are they able to just go to Rome? Like, that's absurdist.
Yep.
And it's like that was a thing. You used to be able to just hop a plane somewhere. You didn't have to you didn't have to you didn't have to go through security in the same way. You didn't all these rules didn't apply. There wasn't the scare or really even the same kind of technology that existed that made those horrible things possible, even though it was like 10 years before. Like, it was a completely different time.
Enjoy your flight.
Thanks.
None of that was even within anyone's
I mean, it's
consideration.
still romanticized, I would say.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
Like,
But mostly the money aspect. Like, oh, we hooked up with a guy and then we bought tickets to Rome and we...
I mean, I'm sure it was cheaper.
For sure.
I mean proportionally, not just
Oh, no.
because of inflation.
No. Yeah. But, like, I don't know. It's like... It's stuff like that is like...
Economists, don't get at me.
It's like you could watch something like that in the 90s and feel closer to it
Yeah,
than
right.
now. Like, now you watch that and you're like, oh, all of these things are so different and you feel so far away from them. Not because of the time. I mean, not as much because of the difference in time. You know, this was, 35 years ago or whatever. But because everything has changed so drastically, like the way social media exists and the way that, like, it's not like, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's super interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I know this happens for sure, but I can't imagine it's to the same extent that people literally are hanging out on the street at
Right.
night to
Yeah.
hook.
Yeah,
I mean, clearly it happens in certain places.
for
I
sure.
think more
Yeah.
more urbanized places,
Right. Yeah.
especially. But
There's a lot more online
right,
stuff. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to do that
yeah.
because, but like stuff like
it's okay
Grindr
because sex trafficking is getting easier.
yeah, right. Oh God, because of all the laws that are being made to keep
Protect children.
to protect, quote unquote, protect sex trafficking victims and keep people safe. It's making it vastly more easy to do things like sex traffic and doing things like creating laws around sex work makes sex trafficking infinitely more accessible to the people who it shouldn't be accessible to, like the people who are demanding it. Because okay, I know I can go on this, whatever. Criminalizing sex work does not do anything to help sex trafficking victims because sex trafficking victims are also sex workers and they get penalized for the same things that just, quote unquote, just a sex worker would. So there's no differentiation between a sex trafficking victim and a sex worker in the eyes of the law. So all of these laws that are coming into play to protect them by criminalizing sex work, or even if you don't criminalize sex work, you just criminalize like the Johns or whatever, that still puts the sex worker in danger because a John would rather kill a sex worker than go to jail. And they're a sex worker or sex trafficking victim, so it's going to be vastly more likely that no one knows who they are, and it goes unsolved, and nobody gives a shit about sex workers. Nobody gives a shit about people like that, so they're not going to do any work to do anything about it, and it's just going to go on as just another unsolved crime. And despite what Law and Order SVU tells you, cops do not give a shit about sex workers or victims of sex trafficking, not in the way that maybe some cops do, but the law is going to keep them from being able to do anything about it because it's set up specifically to criminalize sex work and the people who want to access sex work. And again, I will jump on this. The only way to protect sex workers and sex trafficking victims is to fully decriminalize sex work. And it's been proven. I think New Zealand is I think they fully decriminalized, and it like decreased their sex trafficking, and like it decreased shit like so like much, like by like
Do you think I could get a job at
no.
Neil? Oh fuck! Why am I blanking? It was gonna be such a hilarious joke.
Neil Patrick Harris?
Famous Kiwi actor. Jurassic Park.
Sam Neill.
Sam Neill. Neil Sam.
Neil Sam.
I want to get a job at his vineyard.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. I'll pray for you.
And then do decriminalize sex work to make money. And see what former PM Jacinta Ardern's up to.
And your boy,
Reese Darby.
yeah, Reese Darby.
All them guys.
Yeah, all them guys.
I mean, I don't really care about the Concords.
Yeah, same. I mean, I don't care about the Concords, but those people are fine or whatever, but I don't.
Taika Waititi.
Yeah, but I don't care about the Concords.
Yeah, no, I just remembered that he's Kiwi.
Yeah. I saw him talking about, like, how he he was, like, on a panel, and it was, like, he was saying, like, because he's, you know, indigenous or whatever, he's Maori. And he said, he was like, this is so stupid that I'm doing this. He's like, I shouldn't be here telling you what the fuck to do to make things better. He was like, you fucked it up, you fix it. He's like, why do I need to be here to tell you how to fix what you broke? He's like, it's like burning down my house and then being like, okay, well, how fast do you think it's going to take you to rebuild it? And what can we do to help you rebuild it? He's like, you fucking burn the house down. You fix it. He's like, why do I need to be here to tell you how to? And I was like, damn, okay.
Nice.
All right. And he's like literally saying like, is like, why the fuck? And he's like,
Nice.
it's not him being like really nice. He's like, why the fuck am I here? I don't know why I'm fucking here. I'm like, and everyone's like, and I'm like, okay, all right, y'all.
Yep.
White people love being like, this is so poignant.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, all right. I also saw this thread yesterday, and it was insane to me. It was an indigenous person that was talking about white people need to stop policing closed practices for Native people. There's a big like on TikTok, there's like a big sort of influx of white people doing chin lines.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And claiming it's Viking, and they're like, it's not Viking. That's not what it is. And they're like, oh, whatever. And like, there's a whole thing, and they're like, white people will come on, you know, like if someone is not Inuk, or if they're, you know, they will be like, well, if you're not Inuk, then you shouldn't be doing this or whatever. And they're like, but if someone is not claiming that it's Viking and they're not Inuk, they're like, white people will still come in and be like, this is a closed practice, you shouldn't do it. And they're like, you're stupid. You can't, it's not just Inuk people that do this. Like Maori also do it. And so it's like, just because you see someone as being white who isn't claiming something that they're not and is also doing something that you view as a closed practice doesn't mean it's not a different culture, and it doesn't mean that you have the right to.
Yeah.
And
Well-
but the replies were, people were like 100% misunderstanding, and they were like, "Yep, that's why closed practices shouldn't exist. I agree." And I'm like, "Oh my god."
There you go.
And then another person said something I can't remember, and they were like, they said something basically like misunderstanding, and the person clarified. They're like, no, I'm for closed practices. I'm not saying that I'm against closed practices. I'm saying white people who are not part of these closed practices don't need to be like
Policing.
standing up for them, and they don't have the right. And the way they responded, the person was like, I agree with you. I don't appreciate the way that you replied, though. I was like, And it's so many white people just being like, you're like, you're stupid. They're like, this is why close practices shouldn't exist because everything's free for everyone, man. We're all human. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I hate you all so much. It was so fucking
Well, as
annoying.
we've come to see, we've got
Come see, come saw.
20 years or whatever of social media.
Ugh.
And, well, I mean, this is what I've learned, I'll say.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like this. And, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of an umbrella term, but,
Right.
Anything social justice related or
Yeah.
identity related. White people love policing other white
Yes.
people, which
Yes.
we should
Correct.
I
I
mean-
agree. I agree.
to a certain extent. But like, all the I've heard similar stories that it's just all
Yep. Yep.
largely white men telling each other they're doing it wrong because
Yeah.
of some
Right.
minutia. You
Yeah.
know? Anyway.
And I will say the people in my life who have given me the most grief about my indigeneity and whether or not it's valid are white people
Yeah,
that
weird.
have no idea what indigeneity is, what it means, what tribal sovereignty is, what blood quantum is. And white people are always like all about that blood quantum. They're like, how much Native are you? And I have been asked that
And they
question.
think they're doing the right thing.
Right. They're like,
But-
how much Native are you? And I'm like, don't.
Wait,
no.
folks, this is the biggest
You're not allowed to ask
lesson
that.
I want to impart, that it takes work to be a good person.
A lot of it.
And by design, the systems that our predecessors, our ancestors created means that we will not have easy access to liberatory
Yeah.
thought,
Right.
practices, histories,
Yeah.
and particularly those of folks that we have oppressed. Our ancestors, our predecessors have oppressed.
Yeah.
You have to seek things out.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's scary. You're going to fuck up.
Yeah.
Keep going because
Yeah.
that's the only way.
Yeah. Right. And that's the thing. It's like if you're doing it because you want someone to pat you on the back and say, good job, you're doing it for the wrong reason, and you're not going to get that, and you're not going to keep doing it.
Or if you get it, it's going to be from the wrong people
Correct.
or for the wrong reasons
Right.
or both,
Also, beware and do not listen to the people when you're like, hey, I made a fuck up and I'm really sorry and I just want to apologize. Don't listen to the people that say you have nothing to apologize for. Apologies are always appreciated. It does not matter. They're not overly done. They're not, as long as you're doing a sincere apology. If you're like, I'm sorry you got hurt, but I didn't mean to, you're a shit at apologies.
I mean, it's
if you're
also
like,
like,
I'm
if we're
sorry that
talking
I
about-
hurt you with what I said, great. I'm
Right.
sorry that my words ended up hurting you. I didn't mean to. That doesn't really matter because they did the thing anyway. Great. That's it. You've apologized. Don't listen to people saying you don't have to apologize or there's no reason to apologize, because a lot of times those people wouldn't apologize if they're
Yeah,
called
right.
out. And they think that if you
And
are
also-
called out, you shouldn't apologize. So you don't want to
right.
listen to those people. I see that all the time. I see like so much of the time people being like, you're good, you don't need to apologize. And I'm like, how do you know?
No, yeah. And I was just going to say, if we're talking online, which
Yeah,
we,
yeah,
of
yeah.
course, always are,
Right.
the folks who comment are rarely representative of the majority of,
Correct.
you know what I mean? Like, so, whatever.
Also, white people love being just judgmental. If that's another thing about like white people,
Well, you would say that.
they love
Get it?
doing. I know.
See what I did there?
I do see what you did there. White people like feeling superior, and you really have to check that. If you're like, I don't do this harmful thing that's stereotypical of white people, you probably do. You're probably just not aware of it, or you do it in a place where you're not aware of it. You don't like commenting. A lot of times, white people being like, you shouldn't do XYZ to another white person. Like, it's one thing if you're like, hey, friend, like, just coming to you to let you know that like this could be taken really wrong, and like I'm not trying to tell you how to act, but this could be really offensive to someone. Fine. But if you're like, I don't do this because I know better, fuck off. Because you do something that you don't know better than to do. We all do. So like, you know, I mean, yeah, we all tend to be like, I'm really good at this. And then you remember that dumb thing you said when you were fucking 22 and a half and you're like, I hope no one finds out about it. Your brain wasn't finished developing.
Bo
and you
Burnham.
said, what? Bo Burnham. Oh God. I just can't. I know that I'm not white because Bo Burnham makes me want to light myself on fucking fire. People are like, I'm like, no. I fucking, oh God, no offense. I just would rather be choked by someone I'm not attracted to than listen to Bo Burnham sing another of his songs.